think. Has Chris joined me now? Hello, good afternoon there. I am Deboh. My name is Sen-Deboh, like they call me. We'll be having an interview with Chris Marler. Chris Marler is the principal, the handler, the one on ground that running Africa Digital Media Academy out there. It's a collaborative partnership between Pixel Corp, the California-based company, and the government of Rwanda. You know, he will tell us more about it, but this is me trying to get us to see what is really going on in other parts of Africa, and not just the usual ones we focus on. There are great things going on there. People are pushing efforts going on. Of course, we mostly do need some help. Americans are giving to us right now in the form of Chris Marler, but this guy's heart are so close to Africa. I have been dealing with them for a while. Basically, well, you will hear from Chris now once it comes online, and but I hope by the end of this we can understand. A second there.
Hello, we have success.
Yeah, it's a success now. Wow, this is amazing.
All right.
Wow. Oh my gosh, this is. Good to have you here, man. You know what? I just take the screen off my. Wow, guys at home. This has been an amazing roller coaster ride from last week till yesterday, 2 days ago, up to now, and we finally got Google Hangout working. And it's crazy. You send a message to somebody and they don't see it, and you watch yourself back. Anyway, Chris, good to see you. First off, what do you think about my glasses?
I think they're very cool, but it works because of the hat.
Oh yeah.
You got the cool little hat. You know, a pork pie hat might have been a bit more fashionable, but. You know.
What hat is that?
A pork pie hat.
Oh, okay. I think I have that somewhere. One of my kids are throwing it away. Anyway, it's not a fashion glasses. It's 3D glasses. You see, and just wanted to, yeah. Anyway, welcome here, Chris. Really, we should get this cracking as quick as possible. How are you today, first of all? I mean, we're Africans anyway, so we should do it the way Africans do it. How are you today?
No, things are great. It's always pleasantly busy here. We've got just a lot of activities going on. We have a lot of new students. We are getting to the stage now with the program where we have to kind of formalize its structures a lot in order to make sure that that we have something that's sustainable, that'll stick around for a long time, which is an interesting new set of challenges that are a lot of fun to tackle.
Okay. Let me start by asking. Let's just start this out right away. Tell us about you, Chris. Who are you? I know you, but not everybody knows you.
So, I'm kind of a multimedia dinosaur. I got involved right when I was actually there right when multimedia got started in San Francisco. Right. In 1990-91, and I taught, I think, like one of the first HTML classes in the world in like 1993, 94. A lot of it, I just had the good fortune of, I was actually, working at San Francisco State when this whole multimedia thing got started. Anyway, and then around 1995, I forget the exact. It's the distant past, but somewhere in there, I actually ended up being the director of the multimedia program at San Francisco State, and I ran the program there for about 5 years, and then went from there into the private sector, becoming a partner with Alex Lindsay in the Pixel Corp.
Right.
And he and I joined up early on because we both had gotten quite involved with wanting to create opportunities for developing nations. And I had gone down the traditional path of trying to do that through sort of, in the university setting, doing grant applications and things like that. But in the end, that it was a good learning experience, but it didn't work. So we decided, and Alex had already had launched his company with the goal of doing workforce development in Africa.
Right.
And so I left San Francisco State, joined Alex, and then embarked on what I thought was going to be a 3-year journey to eventually land in Africa. It actually ended up taking 10 years.
Well, that's Africa.
And in that time, we did just a lot of production work, a lot of experimenting with training models in California around teaching people very practical skills around digital media. And then eventually, without going into all the detail, things came to fruition with Rwanda, and I landed in Rwanda in January of 2012 all by myself to build and build the African Digital Media Academy and get it off the ground.
Right.
So I've been mostly in Rwanda now for maybe 3 years in January.
Well, okay, you say, we're going to take it from where you stop right now, Africa Digital Media Academy. Now, for those who probably haven't read the description, or even if you have, I'll say it again. This is an interview between Our TV, myself representing Our TV, which is Animation West Africa Foundation, right? And it's here to put computer graphics practitioners in West Africa on a platform where they can relate, collaborate, and basically attract investors, stakeholders, and distract attention of the bigger world, the bigger industry, into what is possible out there and what is going on. And I tell you, a lot is going on. If you go on www.ourfoundation.net, you will see a static website that is on there that we are. I'm not just saying this for you, though, but for every other person watching. A static website there that you can have a preview while we're working on something else in the background. And now this is AWA, and this is ADMA, and that is Chris, who is the dinosaur out there in ADMA. How many people have you are eating? Dinosaurs?
Yeah, I have a spiky tail. I wave around every now and then when I get enough.
Well, I'm sure you're hiding it under the table right now because I can't see the spiky tail. Yeah. So, talking about ADMA, this is the reason we're here actually. Can we call you the principal? Like you're running the school, the academy. Are you like a principal? Are you like a headmaster that carries the stick? And
oh, absolutely. There's a lot of things I had to get used to when I came here. One is that as director of the school, I became the monster in the closet that you really didn't want to meet. It was like where I was used to things being on a fairly informal basis. Here, I'm very much like you don't want to have a meeting with the director, because if you do, you're in trouble.
Well, welcome to the new world. I mean, you're an American. You're from California, am I correct?
Yeah.
So, and your journey has landed you down in Africa here, where you're dealing with, you're the big dinosaur. Welcome here, anyway. Welcome here. Or you should be telling me welcome, because I don't live in Africa right now. I'm in London, and you're there in Africa. So
we're looking forward to getting you back to your home turf.
Yeah, please do that sometime. Let me start from Rwanda. Get from Rwanda, and so you have given a history of how ADMA came up. The ADMA is Africa Digital Media Academy, right? You've given us a brief history. Now, I went out to your website. You are here on the screen, and this is my webcam. So if you notice me look here and there, it's a weird setup,
Okay.
But I'm looking at your website is Rwanda ADMA. That's RWANDA ADMA.com.
Yep.
For guys who need to know that. Now I went on there and I saw it says, I'll read it out. It says, "Welcome to Africa Digital Media Academy, a vocational training program in Kigali, Rwanda. This is the first of its kind in Africa." So that's really correct, right? That's the first of its kind in Africa.
It's one of those things where Africa is so big, it's hard to be sure. It's hard to do an exhaustive survey of the entire continent and know that there's nothing else like it. I'm sure there are similar training organizations in South Africa,
Right.
but just aside from its actual presence, there's also kind of like the methodologies that we're using here are different. With the support of the Rwandan government, the facilities that we have are unique. We've got a lot of stuff that is hard to come by in most places in Africa.
Right.
So if it's not the first, it's pretty close to it.
I mean, I'm actually not debating if it's first or not. I'm just like trying to, because I believe it's the first, really, because of the magnitude of what you have in mind or what you're doing. And I have related now and then with Alex. I've met Alex a few times. We've worked together. I've worked as a contractor with him and out here in London and stuff. I met him a couple of times. It's given me a whole idea of what is going on out there before I actually met you at all. So I'm actually thinking this might be the biggest of its type in Africa. Is that correct?
It's heading in that direction. It takes a while to build something, and I'm probably only about halfway towards where I want to be, and then we have to sort of catapult into something that's much bigger. And just by example, at the moment, the facility that we have is 2 floors of a building, and physically, one of our next big steps is actually to build more of a larger custom facility, which will probably take a while.
So you have 2 floors of a building. I know you have. I'll get there just now. Let me keep reading here. It says we provide students with the skills necessary to work in all areas of the digital media industry with the same degree of talent and resources anywhere else in the world. Isn't that quite a big it's positive really, but it's quite a big claim to make. This is what I mean. It is quite a huge responsibility because you're saying the same degree of talent and resources anywhere else in the world. You're an American. LA is full of all those big things, but you're talking about the same level as there. Wow, that's impressive. Tell me about that.
Well, I mean, it was part of the initial, proposal to the Rwandan government that we said, if you bring us in, we will, we've had enough experience around education and training and production in the U.S. that we can build you something that really is state of the art. So it began with facilities. So we built very high-end computer labs outfitted with iPads and iMacs, and then we had video conferencing capabilities, and all of which was very nice, but certainly not unreplicated elsewhere. But then the next step was to bring in really fabulous instructors, both in person and via distance learning. So coming from California, we had extensive, and having done production work there for a long time, we had extensive contacts inside the film industry, the commercial industry, the TV industry. And so, like when we teach a class here on 3D animation, we were fortunate to have an instructor here who was one of the animators on The Amazing Spider-Man. So, you don't get any higher up the ladder and professionally than that. We also had the luxury of not just picking people who were accomplished, but also people who had both an interest and an aptitude in teaching. So the first steps was that to have high-level facilities combined with high-level instruction, and then the piece to go with that then was to attach to the direct facilities new specialized facilities that really led to higher end production opportunities. So we built a very nice green screen studio, fully soundproof, and we equipped it with professional cameras. And then we built a motion capture studio, which, as far as we can tell, is only the 5th motion capture studio in all of Africa. And by bringing in all these pieces, we've created the foundation for, I think, building something that's pretty special. And that's probably where I'm going to cut off my answer to that question.
About green screen and motion capture. So I mean, I know about all those things. And which one came first?
The green screen studio. We got that. Actually took me about a year to build, and I finished it in September of 2013. And it's got it's a complete Internet cove, and the room is soundproofed. It's acoustically, set up.
We should have pictures to show us,
It's actually it actually turned out better than I'd hoped when it was all done. Because aside from it's one thing to get all the pieces, the chroma key, green paint here, and all the rest, but actually getting the construction done accurately was a bit unnerving. But it actually turned out really well. And then the motion capture studio was completed about mid-October of this year. So it was only a little over about 5 weeks ago.
Well, how large is each of them? The green screen and the motion capture, how big are they?
It's roughly, I'd say, 8 meters on the side, or 24 feet if you're in the U.S.
Okay.
The rooms are not quite as big as I'd like. In a perfect world, I'd have a much larger green screen studio.
Right.
But it's large enough for us to do training around, elaborate pre-camera setups, that kind of thing. And that's part of what is when we ask about future development. That's one of the reasons we need to get into that we want to create a custom facility. Because what we're doing right now is repurposing an existing building.
Okay, that's right. Did you say you occupy 2 floors in a building?
Yeah. So we've got 2 computer labs, the green screen studio, and the motion capture studio.
Right. Okay. All just within those 2 floors only. Just
yeah.
2 computer labs and the green screen and motion capture. So where's your office? Do you stay like?
I have you can kind of see my office.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is not a private office. I share it with about 4 other people, and on other occasions as many as 6.
Yeah.
So we don't devote much space for administration at the moment. Yeah. And then we have a separate room for holding equipment and things like that.
I would expect for a direct or dinosaur, you should have like a huge, space and like 3 or 4 volt doors before it gets to you, and you need to punch it so you can hear. And
like, where exactly is my personal assistant, and why do I have green M&Ms in my bowl here? But yeah, no, we don't, it's, in some ways it's still early days here. So at some point we'll have larger facilities. But one of the trade-offs we made was actually to develop a facility that's very accessible in downtown Kigali. And the trade-off on that was not necessarily getting a huge complex, but then it makes it very easy for students to get here by Moto, which is the local motorcycle taxi service, or bus or by walking. So
I see.
Access was important to it.
That's great. There's a lot to learn from what you're saying, because this is something positioned to be the biggest in Africa at some point very soon, like replicate the same level of what you get anywhere else in the world. And after, is it 10 years you said of the whole process, you have still decided to keep the whole thing very accessible, very small, even though you have a view of where you're going to. But I think this is something that you don't have so much in other parts of Africa, Nigeria that I know of. It has to probably start high up there and throw the buzz around and make everybody know it's happening and stuff. But there's a lot to learn from this, because this, in my opinion, is about the best thing, it's about the best thing that is coming into Africa at the moment. And it does tell me that Rwanda is going to be positioned in a very strategic place in the industry in the next couple of years. Right. We will talk about the students coming in and everything, but from my relation so far, I know this. Despite that fact, you're still keeping it in an accessible environment, and I think there's a lot to learn from that. There's a lot to learn. It's more about what you're doing, what you have to do, not what you really want people to perceive, which may not be commensurate to what you're actually producing, you know. So for you, it's the other way around. It's more about what you're getting out first, before what the whole world is like. Oh, it's the biggest, it's the hugest, this, that. And I think that's positive, to be honest. Yeah.
Well, and when we talk about that, you know, I mean, for me, you know, PR is kind of a slightly uncomfortable thing that it's sort of a necessary evil.
Right.
You know, we have to say stuff, and, you know, because we're government funded, and we need to make sure the government feels good about what they're paying for.
Right.
And so you have to, you occasionally have to blow your horn a bit. And in the end, it's going to be quite, awareness of what we're doing is going to be, you know, critical. Because we're not just building something big and fancy. We actually, you know, are taking an approach to workforce development that isn't, well, it's not necessarily uncommon in the U.S., but it's certainly uncommon in Africa. You know, we talk about vocational training, but you know, just aside from the facilities and teachers, you know, one of the things that we're really focused on is that learning be very experiential. So, you know, only about 40% of the learning experience here is kind of like what you call your typical classroom. The rest is all related to production activities, getting really hands-on. Because one of the things we find is actually teaching people which buttons to press is the easy part. The hard part is actually getting them to develop problem-solving skills, critical thinking skills, so that they can take the knowledge that they've acquired and apply it in a new situation.
Right.
The process of applying it in that new situation is what really reinforces the skill. And that's when we start getting people who are truly capable of you know, being professionals in the industry.
Right. You know, your website, it's a vocational training, and I think that's what you're emphasizing on. It's not just sit down and just study like you do in any regular school, but it's a vocational thing where you get to, you know, practicalize, you get to know, you get to understand what you're really doing in the practical terms, not just you know, teach you how to use software, but, you know, like you said, the critical thinking. That's why I think it's really keen, to be honest. I am saying on your website, I mean, from what you're saying as well.
I keep peeking to see what you're looking at. I'm like, what are you looking at this time?
You can't say it, don't worry. WDA, what is that again?
It's the Workforce Development Authority.
Workforce Development. That is something that you are working with directly under the government of Rwanda, is that correct?
So my boss here is the director of the WDA. And the WDA is part of the Ministry of Education, and it's also the management sort of umbrella for the overall vocational training network in Rwanda. So whether it's plumbing or hairdressing or, you know, carpentry, it all comes under that vocational network, which is called TVET. And there's TVET in a lot of other countries around Africa as well. But yes, so ADMA, strictly speaking, is part of TVET. It exists somewhat as a, you know, an entity unto itself, because it operates so differently than everybody else. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot I'm learning here, and I believe there's a lot that the rest of Africa can learn here, because you just said that WDA is the overall body for any sort of training like that, for hairdressing, whatever, and computer graphics or media is also put under there. So you don't say to me that what we just said, really, the vocational aspect, being able to get hands-on, you know. I mean, the next question I'm going to ask you is about the mode of teaching and how you get students in and release them out, and that will throw more light on this. But it does excite me a lot. But before I get there, I have been talking to. I'll just show people at home quickly. When I say Alex, I say talking to Alex and stuff. This is Alex's picture. Can you see that? Yeah. Present to.
Oh, yeah. Yep. There you go.
Yeah. Present to everyone. Can you see this? Yeah. So that is me and Alex, and one of these coming down to London a couple of years ago, and yeah, I mean, usually when it comes down, I am part of Pixel Corp's online community, and how Pixelcorps works. So as you know, obviously, it's get a network of people around the world, and one day some things to get done. He gets there and connects the people in that locality to come and get involved. And they have been able to work with him with one or two Salesforce events. Yeah, one of the broadcasts somewhere, some live broadcast stuff in London, in outside of London, in UK and stuff. And yeah, it's been great. But that's one of the occasions that we met together. This is all bar one in London. Was about 10 of us. People came in and left, and we sat down and just had chat. So that is me and Alex.
It looks like you're having a good time.
Yeah. It's all bar one. It's a pub, sort of a high level, high class pub kind of thing. All bar one. That's what it's called here in the UK. Yeah, noise all over in the background and stuff. So he looks a lot better here than what he looks right now. What's he done to himself?
We all get older. and I should point out, because it hasn't actually been mentioned, that Alex is actually the executive director of the ADMA. So he's at the top, and I'm one down below him.
Okay, so he's the bigger dinosaur, sort of.
Yeah, so he's the real Tyrannosaurus Rex, and I'm the Brontosaurus.
Okay, right. I've been with him a couple of times. He hasn't. I didn't find a tail with spikes around him. And how did you develop your tail with spikes?
Survival of the fittest, really.
Yeah. Well, I see that.
That whole cycle of life thing. Eat or be eaten.
Yep. So can you see me now? I just brought myself back on the screen. Yeah.
Yep.
So next question I was going to ask is, you said it initially, but how did you get to white Rwanda? How did you get there? Why not the so-called giant of Africa? I said so-called because let's not go there. But why not the giant of Africa, so to speak, Nigeria? Why not South Africa, which is like another giant there? Why not, don't know where else? Why Rwanda? Why a country that has about 20 years ago being the worst genocide in the world? How did you think that was the best place? I know it's one of the best places in Africa right now. That's what I know. But how did you think about 20 years ago that was the right direction to go? Why Rwanda? Why not? Why not Nigeria? The oil-rich country and stuff like that. Why?
Well, the first thing we did was we recognized that when we did this for the first time, there are some practical things we were going to have to, just take into account and that would drive where we ended up. One was just we knew we weren't going to have to teach in English, so we had to deal with a population that had a lot of people speaking English. Two, we wanted stability, and then three, one of the things that we really needed was bandwidth. So those were, and there were a number of options for that. But fairly quickly, we kind of, we sort of narrowed it down to sort of East Africa. We actually did a pilot program in Zimbabwe. Alex went and taught there on and off for a number of years, and then we also tried a smaller pilot program in Tanzania. Rwanda actually only came on from that because they approached us. And we hadn't even given them much consideration, but Alex had done a number of presentations about what we would like to try and do. And actually, as I said, it was somebody from the Rwandan embassy who got in touch with us and said, "Hey, let's talk some more." And that's what actually made it happen there. Because, they came to us first.
They came to you first?
Yeah.
How did they find you? How did they know you existed?
I wasn't there in that part of it, so I don't know the specific details. It was through Alex. I believe he was, if memory serves, he was doing some presentation at Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh, and a gentleman from the Rwandan embassy was in attendance, and Alex started talking afterwards, and then we proceeded to push paper back and forth for about 2 years, and at one point we thought it had all collapsed, but then suddenly it revived, and I was on a plane to Kigali.
Well,
but a lot of it was good timing.
Right. So if I get you correctly, this process has been about 10 years, right?
Well, personally, yeah. I mean, it took me took us longer to get where we wanted to go than we expected. In terms of the actual, the actual development of the project with the Rwanda government, it's about 2 years in the making.
3 years.
Yeah, 2 years. And then, so we started talking around 2000, I think it was late 2009.
Right.
And then, yeah.
Right.
And
So,
then the thing was also, as we talked to them more, we realized there was a lot of pieces in place that made it appealing. You know, they had, just finished installing the fiber optic backbone around the whole country.
okay.
And, the current stability that we now is very evident. Was very evident in 2010 when we started looking at, which we hadn't been into relationship before. But the biggest thing really was that they were really open and excited about being creative and innovative as far as economic development goes. They were really committed to developing an ICT-based economy, and they were willing to take some gambles around what would be effective to make that kind of thing possible. So they were they've been really tremendously supportive since we got here. I mean, there's always challenges working with the government. One of the things I like to tell people is, yes, when you work with the government, the wheels turn very slowly, but really big wheels, and you can get a lot done. And so it's a lot has to do with how progressive you want them to be, and the commitment that they're ready to make.
Now, the one thing that strikes me there, what you said is, it's taken roughly around 10 years from personnel till right now. And you initially thought it would be like 3 years, and it's only starting like how long? The real thing only started like how long ago? Maybe I knew when you launched into 2012. And you went, that was December 26th, is that correct? I think there was a launching for about ADMA, the official launching.
We actually, we opened the doors to the school in March of 2012. We had the formal launch in October of 2012.
October, yeah. October, that's all the schools.
It had actually been for whatever it was, 6 months already at that point.
Right.
One of the things is, once we came to an agreement, the government really wanted to hit the ground running as fast as we could. I think I landed here on January 15th, 2012, and by March 1st, we had the first computer lab built, and we were running. We've done our first intake of 20 students, and I was teaching, arranging Photoshop classes.
Okay.
So we were moving at a pretty brisk pace.
Yeah.
The official launch was one of those things. It took a while for us to sort of get the facility built enough so it looked presentable, and then it took us a while to get all the official people in the same place. The Minister of Education, Alex. It took us a while to get everybody in the same place.
Yeah, so if you go on your website, there is all those pictures there. I've seen them already. I saw Alex and stuff, yeah. And I knew when it was going to happen. Yeah, so I did see that. The one thing, though, that strikes me here positively is that you've had to wait. Either you or was it Alex? Have had to wait and stick it through all this long process. And at a point, it looks like it was not going to happen. But you stuck it through with it, and eventually it is beginning to birth. And that's something that is worthy of being emulated, because that's that perseverance, that ability to stay long and believe this thing is going to happen eventually, even when it's like it wasn't going to happen, and eventually it did happen. And I think there's a lot to learn from all of this, before we actually start talking about the real handsome thing. This is quite positive to me. Now, I knew that you told me once before that you had like 400 people applications, and you were only going to screen them down to how many?
Okay, so when I first arrived, in that January of 2012, the WDA had already advertised that there's this new program and we're welcoming applications. At that point, there were 400 applicants, from which we selected something like 65 to interview. So I think it was about 6 days after I arrived, I was at a table interviewing. I was a parade of interested students. And yes, and I picked 20 from that. At last count, we have, so we did an intake a few weeks ago, and at last count we had 1,800 applications.
Right.
So we've had 60 full-time students coming through the program so far, and we've recently done an intake of 150 new students who are just part-time. What we're implementing is a new. So one of the problems we ran into is that with 1,800 applications, we no longer could rely on the interview process to give us, A, was too time-consuming, and B, we weren't sure we were even with interviews, we were actually picking all the best students. So we've implemented what we call a competitive semester, where we bring in a large number of people, and they're here for just a short period of time per week. The minimum requirement is 6 hours, and we watch them for 12 weeks. We give them weekly assignments, and we watch their attendance and how well they execute their assignments, and whether they can assignments in on time. And from that group of 150, we'll be 40 to be the next group of permanent, or I should say, full-time students.
Right. So for a period of 12 weeks, you said things go on. But after 12 weeks, do you screen them down? Do you drop people off? What do you do?
No, after 12 weeks, we just look at all the data we've gathered, and we're doing this for the first time, so it's a little bit of a learning experience for us as well. But yeah, the idea is after 12 weeks, we go over all the records, we take a look at, as I said, attendance, assignment, and we pick out the top performer. One of the issues we run into here is that our capacity is still quite limited, and so we, particularly because this is a substantial program to get established, we have to make sure that we maximize the use of our capacity. So we really need to make sure all the students that we bring in are as likely as we can make it to be successful in the program. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense to me. That's right. Picking up from what you have on screen here, it says training Rwandans for the digital age. Now, the question again is, how long are you going to keep this to yourselves only in Rwanda? How long before you start bringing in? Because I discussed this with you once before. If Nigerians wanted to come, or other parts of West Africa, guys from there, I mean, at what point or how were you set that used to trying to figure out the tuition and everything, but tell us how soon do we expect you guys to open up, or you just want to hold the whole experience yourselves only in Rwanda?
Well, there's a few answers. The program itself is going to be opened up to anybody in the pretty near future. At the moment, it's for Rwanda. Part of, I mentioned that we were sort of at this, we had reached a stage where we were having to move on to phase 2, where we formalized the structure to a larger facility. We have more, formal policies in place, that kind of thing. And at that point, we would certainly be opening the program up to anybody. As far as whether it'll ever, whether there'll be something like it elsewhere, it's quite difficult to say at this point. I think the big thing is, to me, is that we had a lot of stuff figured out on paper before we arrived here. But, the actual experience of getting this thing off the ground and running effectively was, obviously we had to learn a lot about how to be productive. Because, Africa is not the same as California, and for all our preconceptions and good ideas, we still have to take a look at, we still have to look at everything from cultural differences to schooling differences. One of the things we found was that people here have been taught in their primary and secondary schools quite differently than, well, I shouldn't say quite, but differently than we're accustomed to. People were, students here were very good at following directions, but we had to provide a lot of encouragement to get them to, sort of be creative and branch out and apply their skills. So it's been a tremendously interesting experience. And I would love to be able to say, hey, we're going to, launch an ADMA in Nigeria, next year, but it's hard to tell. At the moment, I'm still extremely focused on just making everything work here, and sort of refining the model and making sure that we're actually getting it right.
Yeah. So, have you got anything on ground at all? Indeed, for Nigeria, you're just saying it will be a good thing.
Oh yeah, I think there's a number of places where it'd be extremely interesting. Zimbabwe is Nigeria is intriguing. There are other places that I don't mention just because I haven't actually gone to see them, or I spent the time trying to figure out what what things are, what the state of the industry is like. I was in Namibia last year. I thought, well, this is an interesting place. That would be kind of cool to do something like this. But honestly, at the moment, it's still such a big challenge. What we've managed to do so far is kind of a proof of concept. Okay, our methodologies are found that we can come in and have an impact and be effective. But like so many things, projects that happen in Africa, we have to take the next step towards making this whole thing sustainable. What happens in making it self-supporting? How can we ensure that it's not a good idea and it's forced to close down because of budget, something like that. There are no guarantees. So how do we take that next step towards making sure that the ADMA sticks around? And so that's still a big next step for us to take.
Right. The one thing that might be, I don't know, I haven't been to Nigeria for a bit, I haven't been to Ghana at all, but you did say there were fiber optic cables laid in Rwanda just before you came, and they boost a lot of things. I'm not quite sure we have that level out there in those other part of West Africa. I'm not quite sure. I'm not saying it's not there, but I'm not quite sure. I run Animation West Africa Foundation. I oversee all the guys. I hear from them. They do their things. We share together, and I haven't exactly heard that level of sophistication when it comes to interneting and stuff. How would that disturb you? Because I know that, for instance, Joe Foster, he animated Incredible Hulk, and he's a visiting instructor. He does come down to you. But at some point too, do you do a streaming thing, like instructing over the internet?
No, distance learning is a critical piece of the model because, in the long run, or even in the short run, keep flying people into Rwanda.
Right.
You've got to fly them in, you've got to house them, and you've got to pay them a salary.
That's right.
And they're not Joel in here for 4 months, which is terrific. But in general, using distance learning, really expands the pool of potential teachers because, it sounds related. The more successful you are as a professional, the less likely it is that you can take 1 month or 3 months off to come teach in Rwanda. So distance learning allows us to expand the pool of people who can participate in terms of teaching.
Right.
But we can also really expand our outreach. So aside from sustainability, one of the other big challenges is, okay, ADMA took quite a significant investment on the part of the government. So I've done wonderful things now for 60 plus students, and there's another 150 on board, but that's not necessarily transformative for Rwanda. So how can I, what are the things I can do to have a larger impact? How do I scale the impact? Because there's always going to be a very finite number of students I can physically bring through the ADMA. And one of the things that we're going to be working on quite a bit is supporting other training institutions in Rwanda who are doing multimedia basics.
Okay.
So, well, what we can do then is if we have a class on introduction to Photoshop, we can not only bring that class into our classroom here, but we can also send the same class simultaneously to other locations. And so we can have that training structure teaching 60 to 90 students instead of just 20. And that way we can really start to have an impact on on larger numbers of people, which in the long run is going to be really critical. To getting the industry up and going.
Right. I mean, you did say to me once before when we were having the chat that one of the biggest trouble that you've encountered personally was basically getting the smallest items that you need, like to plug in your Mac. It was easier for you to find Mac from the US than to start finding some little things, plugs in here that you need here and there, and you have to fly down to South Africa to go get those things. And it's really, really like, okay, it was easy to bring in the green screen studio and stuff, but those tiny consumables, they become troublesome. I mean, I was going to go on to that. Your equipment, how many? I mean, I know you have a green screen studio, you have a motion capture suite, and then you have two separate labs with Mac installed and everything, and it just look like it is ready. And you bring in people, intake, and you let people go. I'm going to touch on that just shortly. But what will be, I mean, this seems to be going on right now, like steady going on, but what will be your ideal next step as a director of that place? What will be your ideal next point, what you want to achieve for ADMA?
Well, it's part of what I've mentioned a bit already, which is, we've proven, hopefully, anyway, we've proven that we know what we're talking about and that our approach is effective.
Right.
We have successfully trained students and had them go to work in higher level. And where a lot of projects, I think, in Africa die is after you get through that first 2 or 3 year period where everybody's happy and investing lots of money, and you get to that point where it's like, okay, now how do we make sure that this thing survives?
Right.
And it keeps on going. It's that sustainability question. And that's really the next piece. And as I said, I'm kind of repeating myself, but that's really the next piece that I'm explicitly focusing on right now. Okay,
right.
We need to make sure the program survives. We need to move it into a custom facility that's designed for we need to look at other aspects of its involvement with local industry development. And in particular, we need to start demonstrating some things around the creation of new capacities in Rwanda for production, but also new revenue streams from outside Rwanda coming in, say around the motion type.
Okay.
So, but is that the big thing right now? Is the sustainability question?
Sustainability, that's the biggest thing. Okay, well, it just sounds so because the thing seems to be like steady now and going and moving forward. So I'm not going to expect that you want to do some major huge investment next time you've got a green screen studio, motion capture suite, the 2 labs are going. You're fine with the two floors that you have, and yeah, so I can understand why sustainability is basically the next thing. But at some point, definitely, I'm sure you want to be taking it further, But yeah, now the other question I'm going to have is, you have 65 at some point, 150 currently and stuff. Now, where are you outputting these people to? What are they? Because they've got to be able to sustain themselves. That's the whole idea of vocational training.
Sure.
Where are you outputting them to? What are they doing? Where are they right now? Maybe not all of them. Some just probably will be doing other things, but according to you, for your own output, where are you seeing them in? Because I believe they're mostly within Rwanda at the moment, not going to the US or something. How are they doing? Where are they being fed into as you bring them out?
So, and we're still doing data collection on where people are, because sometimes they're hard to track down. But what we're seeing are things like students getting involved in anime and getting involved with the Rwanda Education Board, for example, is very interested in developing visual curricula for the visual textbooks, because they're putting laptops all over the country, one laptop for every child, but there's not much content other than ebooks. There's hardly any different from having a hard copy book in the past. So there's this tremendous interest in developing educational content. And so we have students who recently got, there's 3 students who recently got a $20,000 grant from another NGO to start a company creating these kinds of visual curricula. We have other students who, there's one who's determined to become a rock star. So he's made his own studio, and he learned a lot here about editing and production and green screen work, and so now he's making his own music video. And then there's another student who's gone to work for the big local newspaper as a brand new position. It's kind of like a video documentarian for the newspaper website. And other people have gone to work at the TV stations and as producers and cameramen. And so we have quite a number of success stories. So actually, one of the tasks I have in front of me is to start doing formal gathering of that data and tracking. What's important to us is not just that people get employed, but that they get what you'd call a living wage, a healthy salary. We don't want people going out there and making wedding videos. We want them out there making TV shows and commercials and things like that.
Right. So, I mean, you've mentioned a bit, quite a bit. How long more time have you got? I mean, I'm going to round up shortly, though, but I don't want to stretch it too far. You mentioned about the media and TV shows and handling TV and broadcast stuff and whatever. But how much of that fraction, or how many fraction of that, or how do you say it now? How many of that, or what fraction of that, actually is looking into the 3D part of things?
Actually, there's a surprising amount of interest in 3D. I think 3D is one of those things that is earnestly interesting to people and appealing, because it employs so much of your creative energy as well as your technical energy. But it also has quite a learning curve. So we've got people who are getting pretty good at modeling, but the animation still has further to go. 3D in general, I think, has a slightly longer learning curve than, say, color correct being good at color correct.
That's right. Yeah.
So for us, I think we still have a way to go with 3D still. And where Rwanda is right now, everybody's crying for content, but there's not a whole lot of money for it yet. And so most of the successes that we've had so far are around areas that are having a more immediate payoff. So we've got students who are really good at high definition live streaming. So that's the service that we're on the cusp of having, being offered to anybody in Rwanda. And 2D animation is another area. So we have some students who did 2D animation for the Ministry of Health. Right. And the Ministry of Health wants to hire them to do a whole bunch more.
Okay. That's
But 3D has taken a bit longer. But we're also on the verge of doing some really interesting stuff with that, because now we have the motion capture.
Right.
course, what we're doing with motion capture is capturing human motion so that we can apply it to a 3D model. So, now granted, we're only a couple months into working with the motion capture, but one of the early projects we'll do is do a fake TV commercial with a dancing cell phone.
Yeah.
To get across the idea that now we can make these things here instead of having to go somewhere else. And then once that capacity is demonstrated, then I think more money gets involved. And then we start to get people fired up with actually, getting even better at that.
Right.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it did answer my question. Are there places we can see like works of your students? I mean, you also, as an academic, I don't think you have like produced anything to say this is what we did. It's basically the students doing things, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are there places we can see anything like that they have done, but to see the
Well, I think. Well, obviously, we put up a lot of stuff on the news page you've been showing us on screen. So, if you want to see the cartoon that we did for the Ministry of Health.
It's on the news page here, your website.
Yeah, that was on the news page of the website. We really do need to get around to creating a better gallery of student works. Okay. Yeah, so as you scroll down through that, and this is broken up into multiple pages. So
there's a live streaming going on there. Yeah.
Picture right there is this was we were providing live streaming, a live high definition broadcast over the internet of this Smart Rwanda Day conference, and that was done entirely by students. They ran all the cameras, they ran the gear, the switcher, they set everything up. We actually had a couple people there to watch and make sure they didn't make any serious mistakes. And so we were quite pleased with that. If you scroll further down the page, this is more just pictures from that live streaming.
Well, do you have all those gears at your place? Do you own all those gears?
We own about 90% of them. There's a few bits and pieces that we either rent or bring in temporarily, depending on the scope of the event.
Yeah.
We might need to rent a very long-range lens, for example. Okay. But most of the gear is here.
So this is the one you're talking about?
Yeah. So this was done entirely by students, and it's not that.
Okay. Yep. Yeah. I'll pause it anyway. You can go ahead now. Yeah.
Well, so this was a public service announcement that was done about strep throat for the Ministry of Health, and the important thing to realize with this is these are the first cartoons ever being released in Rwanda.
Wow.
And the art's all sort of homegrown. The animation is all done by students, and so there's still quite a bit of sophistication to still be developed. But this is such a huge step from where we were just 14 months ago.
Right.
In terms of not just the technical execution of the animation, but the scripting, effectively getting the point across, understanding the target audience, and in this case, the target audience were Rwandan children who, it's a big deal if strep throat goes untreated, and so it's explaining to them what the symptoms are and what to do if you get them, and then we went out into the countryside and screened it for kids, and they were in a fairly remote village.
Oh, that was what I just saw here. This one.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Wow. And basically, doing that, you're able to help them, sensitize them towards health and cleanliness and stuff, while at the same time you're churning out people who are being productive in their own work. Right. And that's a fantastic combination.
Right. And the cartoon was from proposal to delivery was done in about 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So anyway, if you continue through, there's lots of other samples. I don't know that I've got a lot. I don't know that we've got a portfolio of 3D projects up there. But there are a lot of, and a lot of the work that shows up is actually produced sort of beyond the umbrella of the school.
Right.
For example, music videos that have been made inside our green screen studio. I don't necessarily put on the website because we just gave them the facilities. The students did it all themselves. But yeah, we should actually get around to doing a sort of more structured formal gallery. Okay.
Now I think you have about 3 more questions and stuff, and then I'll round this up. Now maybe just talks, not necessarily questions, but I would ask this question I asked you earlier, and I'll ask it again. Right, I know you answered, but I wanted to get specifically. Are you thinking at any time soon to really start getting applications from other Africa to study in Rwanda?
Well, it depends what your definition of soon is. So the longer I work on this project, the longer my timelines get. I would guess we would be considering applications from anybody else, from people outside of Rwanda, probably within about a year.
Within a year, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And well, let me be the first one to know when you know something.
Yeah. I'll send you an email.
Then I can get all guys from Animation West Africa Foundation community and all around, I believe they want to learn things like this. I've had lots of people asking me, where can I go? I want to study these, I want to do this, I want to do this. And my best guess for them so far has been South Africa, whatever part else of the world, or online. Online will be in trouble because of the streaming thing. Of course, people still have the high speed streaming there in Nigeria, but for the average person, what you might pay for that might cost you something, when you try to learn. And but I'm thinking if Rwanda is not going to say no to either Nigerians or Ghanaians or whoever else in West Africa, then it might be a viable option. It will be a viable option because you're basically trying to replicate what is there anywhere in the world. So why would somebody want to travel to the US necessarily when they can get it like 2 doors away from them in Rwanda? You know what I mean? And so I think in the next 1 year it would be a good news to have that people can come over to you, and I can give them a personal note and sign my name on it and say, just show my name to Chris, and you're sorted.
And if you actually make it here, we'll roll out a little bit of extra red carpet for you.
Okay, perfect. Red carpet, glass of champagne stuff, and anyway. But let me come out of dream now. Let's come back to reality land.
What actually would be interesting at some point would be to, I think it'd be interesting for the students here, the Rwandan students, to actually talk to some people from other parts of Africa about, what it's taken for you to develop your skills. Okay. I think, one of the things that generally I get impressed by are people who really were self-taught and brought themselves a long way with that. And often I think people get discouraged, and I try and tell them, it really is possible to take yourself a long way. And I love bringing in examples of people who've actually done that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So maybe at some point.
Right. So
bring you in via Google Hangout.
Yeah. Well, I mean, bring me in for real. Let me find out. We've been talking about that before now, so. It will be an honor for me to come down there and walk on the red carpet and stuff.
Yeah.
Now, the next thing I was going to say is, you're trying to sustain what you have on ground right now. Now, if a place like, say, Ghana or Nigeria, for instance, and people come together, I'll tell you what, Animation West Africa Foundation is having a long-term vision of something like what you have going on here. And you know that already because I've had discussions with you. Now, I must say to you that the terrain in Nigeria, for instance, that I know of is quite a typical terrain. And it might take you a longer time to get some things going on here and there, even though the willingness is there. So, but definitely that is an intention in that direction. If I do have somebody who says, I've seen you, Debo, you've been doing things here and there for the community. Can we make this happen? This is, can we afford some money? And let's have something like you have in Rwanda, and you be the man in the middle. We can replicate the same thing in Nigeria, for instance. Like, soon, would you be able to do that? Now, the money is not so much a trouble. I mean, it's there to start off and to push and to probably give you a whole building to yourself, not just a 2 floors in a building and stuff, and to give you much more. I mean, would you imagine that this is the sixth of the 10th oil producing country in the world? I mean, don't joke with us, man. Pick up the money. You know what I mean? Pick up the money. So if we break the money and say you just can't replicate everything, you don't need to wait for 2 years. 6 months, maximum 1 year, it's all going. Would you be able to?
Well, there's a provocative question. I like to think the answer would be yes, but it's the sort of thing you have to really take a, it's like, okay, I'd have to sit down and start, penciling things out. The reality is that, it's not like we are secret scientists who have a formula that nobody else knows. I mean, yes, we sort of jumped in to, sort of prove a slightly different approach to things, but there are ways to make stuff happen if we really wanted to,
right?
Whether directly involved with it or not. I like to think that, certainly. When I was just sort of daydreaming about, what we might accomplish, the notion of doing it in more than one country was quite appealing. And so, yeah, I guess the more I think about it, the more it's not so much the money, it's really the commitment, because commitment, the money is the easy part, because it's very obvious. I mean, it's not easy in the sense of getting the money. But I mean, just saying, sure, we'll put a budget line item of $1 million, but to actually make it happen really means there's a lot of problems to solve.
That's my question.
How do we get running water at the school? How do we stop? What do we do about blackouts? So we back up. And it's not that the solutions to these problems aren't necessarily obvious, but you've actually got to get them done. You've actually got to, make somebody say, okay, we've got to have a good backup generator in place, because otherwise your computer lab will get wrecked with all the constant fluctuations in power. You have to have backup.
Excuse me.
Whoa.
I just pulled out my webcam. It's so.
Got one on the floor.
Can you imagine that? Now I need to find my formula again. No, that's not it.
There's a lot of very explicit sort of infrastructure support that has to come. You have to have a procurement department that will work with you. You've got to have somebody who will be committed to making sure that facilities work properly. And it needs to be more than just like I said, more than just a line item on a budget. There's got to be sort of an institutional commitment to making this thing work. Because otherwise what happens is, so you went back to, we mentioned a story I told you. I had a much easier time, putting through the procurement of my big green screen studio than I did replacing AA batteries for my wireless keyboards and mice on very short notice. Because the nature of the government is not such here. It's not such that it is easy to get them to buy me more batteries.
Don't worry, we can get that to you easily in Nigeria. I mean, just
Yeah. But you get the idea. There is a commitment to making things work, because there's always a lot of problems to solve. And And without that commitment, it doesn't matter how much money you put in the budget. You've gotta be able to. Because I can't land somewhere and do it all by myself.
Right. That's right. Yeah. I mean, it would be a privilege and the world deserved one if Animation West Africa Foundation, it's an incorporated body. If through us things like this can happen in other parts of West Africa, I will be much delighted. It will be a dream come true for me because this is something I really, really want to happen. Because once that happens there, it's easy to distract the attention of the whole world to say, come here, because these guys, even without having this sort of setup, they're already bringing out amazing things, all by learning on their own, and all the challenges you mentioned, the light, the maybe water, maybe this and that, maybe physical disability, whatever personal challenges and everything, and hardware to use and stuff, especially internet and light. Those are the two major issues. But despite that, they've been able to pull themselves up somehow, and they're doing amazing things. I can tell you that, to be honest. So imagine having something like this happen. It's going to boost the productivity. I mean, I see things that Ghanaian people do, and it amazes me. I'm like, wow, really? These guys are up there. 3D, 2D, motion graphics, anything else, Yeah. But it will be a privilege if it does happen through Animation West Africa. Now, to find out. But last other thing is, now you're in Rwanda now and doing all this. How many years time? How long do you see before you take over Africa? Because I know that's your plans. Yeah. How long before you take over Africa?
Well, my original commitment to Rwanda was that I would come here for 3 to 5 years, and I came up with 3 years in January. But of course, it's one of those things that's always, kind of like it's a little bit of a moving target. So I really don't try to put explicit limits on my time here, one way or the other. I think it's like anything else you do. At some point, you realize it's time to move on or not. And I love being here. And it's a long way from California, but mostly I can cope with that. My wife is here, so
your wife is here.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Without that, I would. And it's, for me, it's just been this amazing adventure to have at this stage of my life. So I'm not in any hurry to end it. So we'll see what happens. But no, I really, whether I was directly involved or Alex was directly involved or not, we would really love to see. I mean, this goes back to our original motivation for doing this, which is, so a part I didn't mention before is I have an emotional connection to that because I spent a couple of years here when I was quite young, and then we were both, both Alex and I had a very strong, interest in just seeing things happen here, and so we really want to see not just things develop in Rwanda, but we want to see them develop throughout Africa. And it's difficult to say where the next opportunities will come up or whether we'll be directly involved with them. But I personally am really interested in supporting, to whatever degree, efforts elsewhere.
Well, that's exciting. I see your hearts, you guys' hearts for Africa. I mean, I met Alex. I knew about Pixel Cubs when I was in Cape Town with Triggerfish Studios when I was working and contracting and doing everything with them. Now, by the way, have you heard of Adventures in Zambezia? That's one movie they did. I was part of that. Thankfully, was part of that movie. Now they done. That's a 3D feature I made. They done Kumba right now. Kumba is around the world right now, making its mark here and there. And I wasn't part of that because I was here back then. So when I was in Triggerfish, there was this thing that Pixel Corps did for Africans. They allowed Africans to join into on the Pixel Corps community for a year for free without having to pay like every other person did. And I took up the opportunity and I joined in at that time. Years after, when I met Alex in person, then I did ask him, and he asked. They stopped that thing at that time, but when I asked him, he said it was fine. And then anybody from the West African community who wanted to be part for free just needed to send me a mail. I give them a code, and then they send with that code, get on the Pixel Cubs and they had a free 1 year membership if they wanted, and a few people did have it indeed. And yeah, so I see your heart for Africa, to be honest, that how you want things to be developed. And talking to you right now also, it does confirm a lot of things. And yeah, the truth is Africa does need help here and there. However, you know, you can't help a person who doesn't have the capacity. And that's the thing, there's a capacity here already as well. So once you bring the help, or when anybody brings the help, either from within or from without, once the capacity is there, you know, it becomes a synergy, it works together with either. I'm just gonna round up right now, but I was gonna ask you if you have any, if there's any questions I should have asked you that you think I omitted, and one, if you had any question for me. That's the last two things I'm going to ask you. But just before that, I'm basically just spreading the whole thing around and giving people and creating the awareness and letting them see that there is somebody trying to connect the bridge between us and the developed industry, and that's our community, our foundation. And a while ago, I mean, I'm going to say thank you to you for that. I did put up a GoFundMe page to raise funds for building a website for our foundation. And when you say website, you might wonder, why does somebody need funds to build a website? Well, if you don't have it, then you need it. So we was trying to build something in the class of a community platform, a proper community, CG Society kind of thing, 3D Total, CG World, all those kind of platforms where people have a profile, login, put your things up there. And yeah, we're still on it. We raised some money. You donated a bit, you know, thank you for that. Alex donated as well. Thank him for that. And you know, what encouraged, even though we didn't hit our target and we're still way below what could have even helped us to go further, I am thankful, and it's quite encouraging that people who are like you from afar can understand and see the need and put a little token into. And that should encourage people from within who have this thing concerning them directly. They should take a cue from you and other people, you know, and be able to support and put something into a place where they hope to eventually help them create a platform and be together. So thank you to you for that. Thank you to Alex, if he's going to work this later. I know he's very, very busy. Thank you to many other people who US, Canada, where I'm here and there, who gave something, and a few people from Nigeria and a couple of people from the UK. And yeah, it's still up on there. If you go on GoFundMe, it's a 8-hour site fund. That's the name of it. But yeah, we're working on something in the background at the moment. And well, I'm just gonna pull this down again. Yeah, we're working on something at the moment in the background, and you will see when it's time. But so the last two questions that I said earlier on, is there something I should have asked you that I have skipped? Or is there a question you want to ask me?
There probably was. We covered a lot of ground, but it's not leaping to mind. It'll occur to me as soon as we end this call, and I'll send you a text message. You should have asked me about, you know, my 3 wives. But no, I think the main thought that's occurring to me right now is that, you know, you are early on in your, you know, efforts in some ways, you know, to get things going in Nigeria. And if it's, I don't know if this is a note of encouragement or not, but I recall a point probably around, I would say around 2004, something like that, where Pixagore was down to me and Alex, and that was it. And we were trying to figure out how to keep this thing going. And 6 years, or 6 years later, which is probably longer than certainly longer than I would have liked. About 6 years later, we were talking to the Rwanda. So the point being that persistence really pays off. You know, if this is something that you're dedicated to,
okay, yeah,
you'll get there. You know, we were starting from with almost nothing. You know, we had the benefit of Alex being a high-profile industry person, industry veteran. But basically, you know, we had no money and weren't quite sure where the next paycheck was going to come from. And,
well, sounds like me.
yeah. Well, and that's my point. we were there. We were where you are now, and now we're in Rwanda.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So you can get there, and if there's if there's ways in which we can help, personally, I'm really happy to, do what I can to, make things happen.
Yep, one way to help was the next time Alex comes down there, get a few people to tie his hands behind his back, take out his wallet, take everything out, and just send all the money down to me, and then you can let him go. That would be a way to help. I mean, I know Alex is so busy, I don't know if I'll ever be able to get him on video at any point, but yeah, but it's encouraging to have someone like that. I mean, like you said, an influencer, a professional person in the industry, and sometimes I pick up my just chat him on Google Hangout, and he's responding. I'm thinking, really, this is impossible. He can't be responding, but he's the one, and say same as you two. I know how busy you are building something in a terrain you don't naturally belong to, but which you've taken as your home, and say hello to you, talk to you, and but thank you so much for that. I think I'm trying to wrap through my head quickly right now, and I can't figure out anything else. I think everything that needs to be said probably has been touched on along the line. The next point will be for me to come down to Rwanda, and
I'll take you to one of the local bars here.
I have just been talking to Chris Marler. He is the big dinosaur, the director at Africa Digital Media Academy in Rwanda, and this is an academy trying to put what you find elsewhere in the world, trying to put it down at the feet of Africa in terms of production and graphics and computer graphics, and their work and what they're able to produce can testify to that. Go on their website, Rwanda ADMA, that's one word, .com, working together with WDA, which is basically the government of Rwanda, who's been able to work with them and sponsor them. Yeah, now remember that last question. Are there any perks of you working with the government of Rwanda personally? Have you been on like Kagame's entourage, the president, and things like that? What are the perks that you've had?
Well, I mean, I get to meet the ministers. I haven't met the president yet.
Oh, okay.
We think he knows who we are and what we're doing, but no, I haven't met him yet. I think Alex
has, yeah.
Alex has.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I pretty much met all the major ministers here, and I don't have lunch with them all the time or anything like that.
I did that with the Queen yesterday, remember?
And I don't really spend too much time really trying to cultivate. I mean, for example, we have a small delegation coming to visit from the Swedish embassy tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
We're doing a motion capture session. We've got a professional dancer coming in. We're going to do some motion capture using her. So I'll meet people from the Swedish embassy, but I doubt I'll actually end up meeting the Swedish ambassador because he's not all that interested, particularly in digital media.
Yeah. Anyway, I think on this note we will wrap it up, and it's been a long time coming trying to get this done. Finally, we figured out Google Hangout somehow after all the changes and stuff. And yeah, it's been a brilliant one. I'm gonna hit the quick button here and see what Google does to me next. They upload it directly or ask me to edit or whatever it is. But thank you so much, and have a great week.
If you need to, we can do this again next week.
Yeah, and now I have a hang of it. I mean, I've done this a couple of times before, and it was easy, but after all the changes, I haven't been there, so it became a bit tricky. But if we have to, we can do it next time, yeah, and that could be a different format, maybe more people, in not just you and I, more people coming in to ask questions, because I assume questions will come up after this interview in people's mind. Some people probably want to steal you away from Rwanda with all the money, People want to probably entice you, things will come up.
make sure people know I definitely have a price.
Yeah, and if they come to you, tell them to talk to your what am I then?
Dean was my agent. Go talk to Dean.
Yeah, your agent, perfect one, your agent. And yeah, I mean, go on the website, find out more about Rwanda, find Chris details on Google Plus and whatever, and connect with him, everybody out there. And next time, have more questions if you want to, and we'll do this again. But thank you again, Chris, and cheers, and have a great one. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Bye.